वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णो वन्दे जगद्गुरुं श्रीकृष्णो वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् ॐ श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु. Pranams from Dr. R.J. Kalpana. Welcome to the study of the Bhagavad Gita. In this session, we will commence our study on chapter 13, KshetraKshetrajna. Kshetra is that which is material, mutable and perishable. Kshetrajna is eternal, immutable and imperishable. Now, in traditional literature, this chapter begins directly with Bhagavan Uvacha. Krishna opens the discourse in this chapter. There are some texts of the Gita where this chapter opens with Arjuna asking a question to Krishna over the difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Scholars are of the opinion that this is a later day addition, and therefore traditional literature and traditional discourse of the Bhagavad Gita in this 13th chapter always begins with Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Atha Trayodashodhyayah KshetraKshetrajna Vibhaga. The yoga of discrimination between Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Shloka 1. Shri Bhagavan said, the body Arjuna is termed as the field Kshetra, and him who knows it, the sages discerning the truth about both, refer to as the knower of the field Kshetrajna. So here Krishna refers to the individual body as that which is the Kshetra, the field of matter. And the one who understands this, the yogis, the sages, who understand that this field is mutable and perishable, is considered to be Kshetrajna, the knower of the field. Now, at another deeper level, Kshetrajna also refers to the consciousness that is present within the individual, that which is indestructible. Shloka 2. Know myself to be the Kshetrajna also in all the Kshetras, Arjuna, and it is the knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajna which I consider as wisdom. So now Krishna overtly establishes the identity of the soul with the oversoul, of the Jivatma with the Paramatma, and says that one who knows this difference, one who understands the concept of Kshetra as the field of matter and Kshetrajna as the soul which animates and illumes this field, that I consider as the only knowledge worth having. That is spiritual enlightenment or wisdom. Shloka 3. What that Kshetra is and what it is like, and also what are its evolutes. Again, whence is what, and also finally who that Kshetrajna is and what is his glory. Hear all this from me in a nutshell. So literally, Krishna preempts Arjuna from asking that question as what is the Kshetra and what is the Kshetrajna and what are its qualifications. Therefore, Krishna says that I will explain to you what this field of matter is and what are its evolutes. And finally, hear what Kshetrajna is and listen to all its glory. Shloka 4. The truth about the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna has been expounded by the seers in manifold ways. Again, it has been separately stated in different Vedic chants and also in the conclusive and reasoned texts of the Brahma Sutras. So here Krishna effectively states that there's nothing new that I'm telling you here. It's all been said before in the Brahma Sutras, the Vedas, the Upanishads. It's all been conclusive over there. The sages have sung about this in great detail. They have been stated differently in different ways. Shloka 5. The 5 elements, the ego, the intellect, the unmanifest, the 10 organs of perception, the mind, and the 5 objects of senses. So now here, what is Kshetra? So there is an exhaustive description of this field of matter, which contains the Panchabhutas, the Panchendriyas, the Panchakarmendriyas, the Panchajnanendriyas, the Panchatanmatras, and ego intellect. Shloka 6. Also desire, aversion, pleasure, pain, the physical body, the consciousness, firmness, thus is the Kshetra with its evolutes briefly stated. And again, in addition to all the elements, Krishna talks about consciousness, the physical body, subject to the evolutes of nature and therefore experiences pleasure and pain. All this belong to the field of matter. Shloka 7. Absence of pride, freedom from hypocrisy, non-violence, forbearance, straightness of body, speech and mind, devout service of the preceptor, internal and external purity, steadfastness of mind and control of body, mind, and the senses. So here Krishna goes on to explain the qualities that is required for the Kshetrajna, the knower of the field. And those qualities are humility, modesty, non-violence, forgiveness, uprightness, service to the teacher, purity, steadfastness, and self-control. So all of this is inclusive of absence of pride, you know, boasting of knowledge that we do not do, non-violence, not just in physical violence, but also in thought, word, and deed. Forgiveness is that capacity to suffer in silence. Service to teacher is not merely physical show, but also gratitude to your spiritual preceptor. Purity of the body and mind, steadfastness, consistent efforts towards the goal, and self-control and self-discipline. Shloka 8. Dispassion towards the objects of enjoyment of this world and the next, and also absence of egotism, pondering again and again on the pain and evils inherent in birth, death, old age, and disease. So one is an indifference to sensual pleasures, to detach oneself from material objects, attachments to relationships, and also to stop brooding over sickness and death. Shloka 9. Absence of attachment, the feeling of mine in respect of son, wife, home, constant equipoise of mind both in favorable and unfavorable circumstances. So complete equanimity, balanced equanimity of mind to approach both failure and victory with the same attitude. Shloka 10. Unflinching devotion to me through exclusive attachment, living in secluded and holy places, and finding no enjoyment in the company of sensual men. Bhakti. We saw in chapter 12 the definition of bhakti, what it means to devote oneself, thought, word, and deed to the divine, unflinching, unswerving loyalty to the divine, intense love to the divine, living in secluded and holy places merely because it helps in a practice of single-mindedness. It helps in the practice of meditation, to withdraw from the world and the distractions of the world, temporarily at least, to be able to focus, practice sufficiently enough that we are established in that field of divine illumination, that even when we get back into the material world with its constant challenges, temptations, fears, we are able to deal with it. We are able to handle ourselves with equipoise, and a distaste for society and the company of self-indulgent people. Shloka 11. Fixity in self-knowledge and seeing God as the object of true knowledge, all this is declared as knowledge, and what is antithesis to it is called ignorance. So here Krishna talks about constancy in our approach towards self-realization. Brahma has to be experienced and not merely learned in a classroom. That which is true knowledge is to perceive the divine in everything and everyone around us. Shloka 12. I shall speak to you at length about that which ought to be known, and knowing which one attains supreme bliss. That supreme Brahma, who is the Lord of beginningless entities, is said to be neither Sat nor Asat. So here Krishna talks about wanting to reveal to Arjuna the concept of that divine which, having once experienced, one attains supreme bliss. That truth, Sat, that truth which is beyond beginnings and endings, which is infinite, which is said to be neither Sat nor Asat, being and non-being. The illuminator and the illumined cannot be the same, like the electricity and the bulb. Therefore, the divine is defined as being and non-being. Shloka 13. It has hands and feet on all sides, eyes, head and mouth in all directions, and ears all around. It stands pervading all in the universe. This statement is that the all-pervasive Brahman, the omniscient, the omnipotent, the omnipresent. Shloka 14. Though perceiving all sense objects, it is really speaking devoid of all senses. Nay, though unattached, it is the sustainer of all nonetheless, and though attributeless, it is the enjoyer of qualities, the three modes of Prakriti. So here, the divine is the Kshetrajna, that divine principle that is prevalent in the field of matter, in Kshetra. And although technically it is devoid of all senses, nonetheless it is a reflection of the qualities of the senses, which in turn are but evolutes of Prakriti, of the field. Though it perceives the sense objects, it is devoid of senses. Though it is unattached to anything, it still sustains everything. Though it has no attributes, and yet it enjoys the qualities. Shloka 15. It exists within and without all beings and constitutes the animate and inanimate creation as well. And by reason of its subtlety, it's incomprehensible. It's close at hand and stands afar too. It is manifest, and yet it is unmanifest. We saw in chapter 7, Jnana Vijnana Yoga, the unmanifested reality and the manifested divinity. The absolute truth is motionless. It has no place to move because it's all pervasive. It pervades everywhere. But because it is present in animate beings, it looks like it has movement. If we are traveling by plane, we do not move, but our body is moved by the plane to reach the destination. Shloka 16. Though integral like space in its undivided aspect, it appears divided, as it were, in all animate and inanimate beings, and that Godhead, which is the only object worth knowing, is the sustainer of beings as Vishnu, is the destroyer as Rudra, and the creator of all as Brahma. The unmanifest is undivided, but it manifests itself as divisions in all beings. It is the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. The earth creates the plants and destroys them. The oceans creates the waves and it devours them in turn. So the absolute divine is the substratum on which is projected the plurality of the world. So when the mind and the intellect is transcended, the samskaras get devoured. Like we dream, but on waking, the dream merges into the person's mind. Shloka 17. That Supreme Brahma is said to be the light of all lights and entirely beyond Maya. That Godhead is knowledge itself, worth knowing and worth attaining through real wisdom, and is particularly seated in the heart of all. Once again, we understand why heartfulness meditation meditates upon the divine light in the heart. The divine light, said to be the light of all lights, that which illumes everything, the sun, the moon, the stars, even the human beings, that which is beyond Maya, the world of darkness and illusion, that which is knowledge itself, the goal of human life, the center which we ought to reach for the final merger, that which is an indweller in the hearts of all beings. Shloka 18. Thus the truth of the Kshetra and knowledge, as well as of the object worth knowing, God, has been briefly discussed. Knowing this in reality, my devotive enters into my being. Therefore, in Shloka 18, Krishna says that so this is the truth of the Kshetra, the field of matter, knowledge, the knowledge of the field, KshetraKshetrajna, the knower of that field, and only when that is perceived by the seeker, then will the devotive enter the center for the final merger with the divine. Shloka 19. Prakriti and Purusha know both these as beginningless, and know all modifications such as likes and dislikes, and all objects constituted of the three gunas are born of Prakriti. And so therefore here Krishna talks about the Kshetra and KshetraKshetrajna as Prakriti and Purusha. Shloka 20. Prakriti is said to be responsible for bringing forth the evolutes and the instruments, while the individual soul is declared to be the cause of experience of joys and sorrows. Prakriti, or the field of matter, is responsible for the senses and its instruments of pleasure and pain. And Purusha is also responsible, because without consciousness we will not experience the difference between pleasure and pain. We will be like a person in coma, declared brain dead, but all our vital organs are still functioning. Sloka 21. Only the Purusha seated in Prakriti senses objects of the nature of the three gunas evolved from Prakriti, and its contact with these gunas that is responsible for the birth of the soul in good and evil wombs. So it is that Purusha, that divine principle, illuminator, that is seated in Prakriti, established in the field of matter. The knower of that field, Kshetrajna, understands the nature of the three gunas, Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic, that has evolved from Prakriti. And consequently, it is this contact with these gunas and their effect upon our lives that becomes responsible for our birth into good or evil wombs. Whether we are born in a family of enlightened souls or we are born into a family of tamasic souls. So it is that Purusha seated in Prakriti that experiences the qualities that are born out of nature and becomes the cause of human birth. So the knower of the field, the Kshetrajna, identifies with the field, the Kshetra, and thus becomes the experiencer. Chariji said in heartfulness meditation, you are the experimenter, you are the experiment, and you are the result of that experiment. So you become the knower of the field, you become the field, and you become the knowledge of both. Sloka 22. The spirit dwelling in this body is really the same as the Supreme. He has been spoken of as the witness, the true guide, the sustainer of all, the experiencer, the overlord, and the absolute as well. So here, the Purusha and the Jivatma is also the same as the absolute, the unmanifest, because they function as the witness, the experiencer, the manifest, and that experience then in turn determines our evolutionary journey. Shloka 23. He who thus knows the Purusha and Prakriti together with the gunas, even though performing his duties in every way, is never born again. So here Krishna says that he who knows the field, the knower of the field, and has the knowledge of the tendencies, the gunas that is caused by the two, experiences and perceives them, will be free from bondage, because he knows the path that leads to divine merger and the path that leads to devolution away from divinity. Shloka 24. Some, by meditation, behold the Supreme Spirit in the heart with the help of their refined and sharp intellect. Others realize it through the discipline of knowledge, and others again through the discipline of action. So here Krishna talks about several paths to knowledge that we already saw in the Bhagavad Gita. Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga. No path is superior or inferior to each other. Each path depends on the tendencies of the person, and they will select that which predominates, the gunas which predominates in them. Sankhya Yoga, the path of knowledge, has 4 steps: sadhana chatushtaya, viveka, vairagya, satsampatti, and mumukshatva. Viveka means discrimination, to constantly discriminate between right and wrong, real and unreal, eternal and temporary. Vairagya is detachment. Once we have the ability to discriminate, the viveka, no longer will we actively seek pleasures. Satsampatti, the 6-fold riches. Sama, dhamma, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, samadhana. Sama is stillness of the mind, which no longer wavers but is calm and steady. Dhamma is mastery over the senses, complete self-control. Uparati is like pratyahara, withdrawal of the mind from the senses. Titiksha is equipoise, or complete balance of the mind where there are no dualities. Shraddha is faith in the unmanifest and the manifest. Samadhana is total absorption of the mind in the goal. There is this story about the Pandavas and the Kauravas learning their archery from Dronacharya. So one of the steps is a test that Dronacharya devised. So he called the children, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, onto an open field and pointed to a bird sitting on a tree and said, "You have learnt now sufficiently that your test is that you should shoot an arrow into the eye of the bird sitting on that tree." All the children are enthusiastic, so they all step up one by one. And Dronacharya asks each one of them in turn, what do they see? And each one of them replies, "I see the sky, I see the white clouds, I see the green leaves, I see the brown tree, I see the cows in the field, I see the blue sky, I see the birds flying." It's only Arjuna who steps up and tells Dronacharya, "I see the eye of the bird." That is total absorption of the mind on the goal. Mumukshatva, the quest for liberation. Now Karma Yoga, as we already saw, is to perform one's duties dispassionately, as prescribed in the Vedas according to our varnas and ashramas. Dhyana Yoga is to meditate, withdraw from the external world to the internal world, experience the manifest which leads to the unmanifest. Shloka 25. Other dull-witted persons, however, not knowing thus, worship even as they have heard from others, and even those who are thus devoted to hearing are able to cross the ocean of mundane existence in the shape of death. Such beautiful compassion of the divine that Krishna says, it's okay if you do not understand what I have explained so far. It's okay if Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga is beyond your capacity. If you're able to follow what you have heard from the others, and even without any real understanding, blindly follow, then you too shall go beyond death and be freed from bondage. I had in an earlier chapter explained the necessity of satsang. Sat ke sang, to be in the presence of truth, to be in the presence of highly advanced, evolved souls, and what that affects us, what takes place when we are in their presence, how our own vibratory field starts responding at a higher frequency, at a divine frequency. That is the magic that takes place in satsang. To be in the presence of a guru who transforms, transmutes, transcreates the very chemistry of your being. Shloka 26. Arjuna, whatsoever being animate or inanimate is born, know it as emanated from the union of Kshetra and KshetraKshetrajna. So that which is the union of Purusha and Prakriti comes forth both the sentient and the non-sentient. Shloka 27. He alone truly sees, who sees the Supreme Lord as imperishable and abiding equally in all perishable beings, both animate and inanimate. Krishna in the earlier chapters, especially in chapter 2, defines the true knowledge, the only knowledge that is worth having is the knowledge of the soul in the human body. And here he says, the only sight, the only vision, the only thing worth seeing is to see the divine in everything and everyone around us. That is real sight. Shloka 28. For he who kills not himself, by seeing the Supreme Lord equally present in all as one, thereby reaches the supreme state. Now, this might sound a little complicated, but in reality, all Krishna is saying here is that remove the blinders from your eyes and be not deluded by this illusionary world of the field of matter, the kshetra that you are trapped in, and with true eyesight see your soul, that which is the only thing you need, that which takes you on a multi-dimensional journey, not just in planet Earth, in the human dimension, but that which sustains you in all the other celestial dimensions as well. If you see that, then you can reach that supreme state, the center, the central region. You can reach that state of unmanifest reality. Shloka 29. And he alone really sees, who sees all actions being performed in every way by Prakriti alone, and the self as the non-doer. Again here, Krishna talks about the Purusha or the soul as being eternal, being only a witness and a non-doer. All actions are driven by the tendencies which are instruments of Prakriti or nature, and therefore they do not affect the causal body. Because the self is eternal, pure, awakened, free, and devoid of all modifications. Shloka 30. The moment man perceives the diversified existence of beings as rooted in the one Supreme Spirit and the spreading forth of all beings from the same, that very moment he attains Brahma, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Now here Krishna says that it is that moment in time when one perceives that all these diverse elements of nature has its roots in the same divine principle, and it is at that moment that he has opened his mind, he has opened his soul to divine consciousness. Shloka 31. Arjuna, being without beginning and without attributes, this indestructible Supreme Spirit, though dwelling in the body, in fact does nothing, nor gets contaminated. So the Supreme Divine, that divine principle, neither acts nor is tainted by the actions performed by the subtle body, because it has no attributes. It is beginningless, so it is vast air outside of the glass, trapped within the glass. So take a glass in your hand and see that the glass contains air which is similar to the air outside the glass. Remove the glass container, then they both merge. The air inside and the air outside merges as one. All that is stopping the air within the glass to merge is this physical container called glass. So too with the human body. The soul within is the same as the soul divine. All that is stopping us from merging with that divine soul is the physical body and the attributes, the tendencies of the physical body, which are but merely effects, evolutes of Prakriti, nature. Shloka 32. As the all-pervading ether is not tainted by reason of its subtlety, so seated everywhere in the body, the self is not affected by the attributes of the body due to its attributeless character. Like ether, due to its subtle nature which cannot be tainted, nor does the causal body get tainted because it doesn't have any attributes. Shloka 33. Arjuna, as the one sun illumes this entire universe, so the one Atma illumes the whole Kshetra. Krishna here brings the illustration of the sun to help us understand that just like the sun lights up the entire universe, so too does our soul light up the physical field of matter that we are trapped within. Shloka 34. Those who thus perceive with the eye of wisdom the difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna and the phenomenon of liberation from Prakriti with her evolutes reach the Supreme Eternal Spirit. So Krishna here says that by wisdom understand this difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, the field and the knower of the field, and their relationship. And then it is easy to attain liberation and reach the center. Om Tatsaditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayan Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Kshetra Vibhaga Yogo Nama Trayodashodhyayaha. Om Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Thus in the Upanishad sung by the Lord, the science of Brahma, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Shri Krishna and Arjuna, ends the 13th chapter entitled The Yoga of Discrimination between Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Om Yogesho Satchidanandam Vasudevam Rajapriyam Dharma Samstapakam Viram Krishno Vande Jagat Gurum. Shri Krishno Vande Jagat Gurum. Om Shri Krishnarpanamastu.